I'm back to review all the Ursula's Returns cards, and this time I'm doing Amethyst Ink. Hi everyone, this is Disam from Mushi Report, and I'm doing a review of every single card from Ursula's Return, or 204 of them, and I just did a video recently for all the Amber Ink cards. So before I start with the previous Amber Ink video, I went through the cards in card number order, but I think that it's better to go through them by a team putting all the cards that are related together. So that's what I'll be doing today for the Amethyst Ink video, starting off with Antonio Madrigal, Animal Expert. So, of course, Antonio Madrigal is just a vanilla. He has the very basic 3 cost, 3/4 stats, 1 law, but yes, as I mentioned in the Amber Ink video, you actually have a lot of synergy for the Madrigals, especially with the Mirabelle Madrigal that can actually give all your Madrigal characters extra 1 law when she quests. So that's actually a very important part to consider on the idea that they can get extra law. Moving on, we have Bruno Madrigal Out of the Shadows, all the earliest cards that we actually got reviewed. So 5 cost, 4/5 stats with 1 law, and when you play this character, chosen character gains. When this character is banished in a challenge, you may return this card to your hand. Basically letting any one of your characters become Hey Persistence Presence for that 1 turn. They can crash into another character and then after that go back to the hand. Is that useful? I think it's useful in terms of card advantage. You can get 1 card back to hand, you can use it for ink, or you can just use it to replay again in the next turn. If you have a very good character, then yeah, Bruno Madrigal, this is a pretty decent effect, I would say. Maybe cost a bit high, but it's still a nice card. And then we have Bruno Madrigal Undetected Anchor. It's a 4 cost 3/3 with the ability Evasive, and also when it exerts, name a card, review the top card of your deck, and if it is the name card, you can put a card into your hand and gain 3 law. Otherwise, put it on the top of your deck. So Bruno Madrigal here is of course supposed to be working with Abuela, or otherwise known as Alma Madrigal, because she has the ability to actually search through your deck for any Madrigal character and then put it on the top of your deck. So as a combo using Alma Madrigal, you can put the character onto the top of the deck, then use Bruno over here to gain 3 law and can add it to your hand. So that's really nice. And of course, there's other ways you can use Bruno Madrigal's ability. For example, with Merlin Squirrel, that can let you actually stack your deck, and that's perfect to use together with Bruno Madrigal. So the Madrigals are coming along pretty nicely. You can see a nice strategy actually forming for the Madrigals. Next, you have Camilo Madrigal, 4 cost, 2/5 stats, and the ability to actually gain either +1 law or gain Challenger +2 this turn. So, and you have to choose at the start of your turn. So I think that this is a really nice one, because if you just use the Challenger ability, it's a 4/5 stats. Not the best stats, of course. You're going to compare it to Jafar over here, which actually can become 5/5. This one will just go into a 4/5. That being said, he has the ability to also gain +1 law, which means that combined with your Mirabelle Madrigal, that actually lets you go into 3 law for the turn you quest with Camilo. So that's actually a really nice consideration. You just need to plan your plays out a little bit better, and then yeah, you can actually gain law really fast with the Madrigals. Next, you have Dolores Madrigal. So Dolores, 4 cost 3/3. When you play this character, if an opponent has an exerted character in play, you may draw a card, which chances are your opponent is going to have an exerted character in play. As long as they've been challenging or questing, then there's a good chance that they'll have an exerted character in play. Now, of course, there's the chance that if your opponent knows that you're playing a Madrigal deck, then they'll be wary of Dolores, and then they may choose to not quest or challenge on their turn 3, so that when you play your Dolores on turn 4, you will not get to draw a card. But in a way, I think that there's still a win, because you're actually going to be effectively holding off your opponent for 1 turn, even if they predict the card. Or, of course, if they don't predict the card, then, well, you're just going to be getting 1 card draw. 4 cost 3/3 with 2 law. That's either way still a very nice stat and nice ability. Isabella Madrigal Golden Child, evasive, and otherwise she also can get extra 3 law if there's no other characters that quest yet, except that she has to be the only one that quests for that turn. So at a 5 cost 3/4 with 4 law possibly. So that's actually like a game-winning character over here. There's so many characters that can actually gain you a lot of law, like for example, your Flynn Rider and your Bell Strange Special. All these have various ways to just let you gain more law, but all of them comes with various caveats, like your opponent needs to have no hand. All you need to have 10 cards in your Inkwell. Well, Isabella, as long as there's no other character that's quested this turn, she's actually just going to be for law. So of course that doesn't combo that well with Mirabelle Madrigal. You can't gain an extra law for that, but yeah, just by herself, 5 cost with 4 lore, that actually makes her a really good card to just gain a lot of lore very fast. Next, Luisa Madrigal, she has Rush, 4 cost for 3. This one is just alright, I guess that you can put it in the deck if you really want to, but Luisa isn't that great at the moment. She has just 1 extra strength compared to Rafiki, otherwise it's about the same, and she costs 4 over Rafiki's 3. I personally think that you don't really need Luisa unless you just somehow really want a rush character, and especially since that she has 3 willpower and she's going to be rushing in, she's not going to be really able to survive the challenge that well. Then that means, well, she's not going to survive, then she's not going to be benefiting from, for example, Mirabelle Madrigal. So since she's not going to be benefiting, is there really that strong a purpose to play Luisa? Maybe it's just better to, for example, play some remover cards or some other ways to synergize with your other Madrigal cards. Probably one of the weaker Madrigals in a way, even weaker than, say, a vanilla like Antonio Madrigal actually. Finally, last Madrigal, we have Peppa Madrigal, Weather Maker. So when you play this character, you may exert chosen opposing character, and that character can't ready at the start of their next turn unless they are at a location. So of course, you're not going to be choosing a character that's at a location, which means that you can exert a chosen opposing character. Her stats aren't that fantastic though, so you can actually use her to combo together with Dolores, but if you really want an ability like this to just exert a chosen opposing character, then yeah, you might as well just consider using Pinocchio. Of course, Peppa has a slight benefit that that character can't ready at the start of their next turn. That's a really strong ability. Currently, you can only kind of see that in Elsa and a couple of other cards here and there, but yeah, I don't like the stat line. I think it's just alright for the other 5 cost characters, like say for example your Bruno Out of the Shadows, your Mirabelle. Those are your more important 5 cost characters to play. Next, we have Swing into Action. Although this isn't exactly an Encanto theme card, the artwork is based on Isabella, so yeah, I'm putting it here. And it's a 1 cost and the chosen character gets Rush for this turn. In a way, this is easier to play compared to, say, your White Rabbit's Pocket Watch. You just pay 1 cost and let it rush. You don't really need to use it that often anyway with such abilities. And at the same time, you can just get it to be inked. So yeah, there's a lot of benefits to use this card. I think that it's a pretty alright card if you need some rush. Lastly, we have Casa Madrigal Casita. So Casa Madrigal is a 1 cost location with 1 move cost and 6 willpower, which makes it maybe about similar or that much better than the various vanilla locations, because those vanilla locations at 1 cost, they have 4 willpower only, but they already have 1 lore. Whereas in this case for Casita, there's 0 lore, and you have to move a character here to actually be able to gain 1 lore regularly. So that might be a slight demerit, and at the moment there aren't really any Madrigals that can benefit off being a location. So I kind of feel like this isn't that great a card and you don't really need it. I still think that you'll be probably playing your Queen's Castle Mirror Chamber a lot more. Those are all the Encanto Madrigal cards. Moving on, we have the Ursula team cards with Flotsam Ursula's Baby. Starting off with a Flotsam 3 cost 4/2 with a quick escape. When this character is banished and challenged, you can return this card to your hand. And also, of course, all your Jetsams can gain that same ability as well. So everybody basically becomes a hey hey persistent presence. Such a fantastic world, everybody likes to be hey hey. And yeah, I think that this is alright. We have the Gaston type of stats, I guess, with 4/2. You can banish and challenge, return to hand. That's always a nice benefit to actually gain back some resources. Just that this isn't inkable, so I'm not too sure it's that great. Of course, this is a really nice ability compared to all the other Flotsams and Jetsams we've got so far with just basic stuff with Challenger or with your Ward, with your Evasive, that kind of stuff. This one is really nice because it directly adds some card advantage to you, just that you don't get to use it as ink. So that's something to consider. You might want to consider how many uninkables do you have in your deck if you plan to build this Flotsam and Jetsam deck. Next, we have Jetsam Ursula's Baby. 3 cost, 2 for stats, so basically the opposite stats. with Challenger +2. So this is not bad. This is kind of like your 3-cost Lawrence in a way for the steel deck, because that one is a 3-cost character, and when there's no damage it's 4/4. So Jetsam over here is kind of the same 3-cost and will be a 4/4 when challenging. So I feel that this stats is actually quite nice for Jetsam at 4/4. He can survive the challenge and hopefully maybe just survive for the next turn. He can do more challenging again at 4 strength. That's actually pretty decent. And of course you can give all your flotsams Challenger +2, which will work nicely with the flotsam that can go back to your hand. But do you really need 6 strength on a flotsam? Maybe here and there it would be useful if there's a lot of people playing resist, but yeah, I think it's just alright. My bigger thoughts would be more on flotsam and Jetsam Entangling Eel. So this is a nice sort of team up card. That's the first and only one we have so far, showing 2 characters that can shift into this character, because either Flotsam or Jetsam can both shift into this Flotsam and Jetsam Entangling Eels. Now, he doesn't really have any ability other than being counted as being named both Flotsam and Jetsam. That means this Flotsam and Jetsam can actually gain all the various abilities from your various Flotsams and Jetsams, like for example the one that will, when you get banished and challenged in the challenge, you can go back to hand, or gaining Challenger, or gaining Invasive and Rush and all that kind of stuff. So you can really build a full-on Flotsam and Jetsam team deck now, and you have a nice boss character. That said though, discarding 2 cards is actually a really expensive cost. Of course, there's the Flotsam, which actually it went back to hand. So yeah, those are the ways that you gain back some card advantage to discard. And Amethyst does have a lot of draw power, because right now Flotsam and Jetsam, both of them have various 3-cost versions. That means that technically on turn 3 you could play a Flotsam, for example, and straight away discard 2 cards to shift right into this Flotsam and Jetsam, and have a 5/5 character on the board by turn 3. That's actually pretty fantastic. Or of course you can do it on turn 4 and you can straight away do some challenging or questing, for example. I think the idea here is that you just have a very big character over there. It would be nice if you have some of the Flotsam and Jetsams that give evasive, for example. But aside from that, well, I think this is a alright boss monster. I still think the discard cost is quite high. Moving on, we have Ursula Mad Sea Witch, which is one of the most interesting cards because there's actually 2 versions of Ursulas that's fighting together, obviously, and you can see over here one of them has Flotsam and Jetsam both going along with this Ursula Mad Sea Witch that's challenging the other Ursula. So yeah, some interesting stuff over here. And this Ursula actually also has pretty interesting stats because it's a 2-cost character with 1/3 stats and Challenger 2. So technically this could be considered as a 2-cost character with 3/3 stats. Of course, that doesn't really compute out when your opponent is challenging her. It's just a 1/3. But occasionally, I think it's nice to actually have some extra strength on your board. If you're going second, then this is a nice card because your opponent, after they have your turn 3 and they're questing with their turn 2 characters perhaps, and chances are they can actually get taken out quite easily by Ursula Mad Sea Witch. Then we have Ursula Sea Witch Queen, which is another flat bond for Ursula. You can shift 5, and also whenever this character quests, you can exert a chosen character. And lastly, all the other characters can't exert to sing songs. Very on theme for Ursula. So I think that this card, though I'm not too sure how I feel about just exerting a chosen opposing character. Well, you can choose any character, but if you exert a chosen opposing character, then you just have something else to just challenge into them. Is that great ability? I don't think so. I value more the can't exert to sing songs ability because this looks like a very good counter for Steel Song. And of course, shift 5 and you can come in on turn 5 with 4/7 stats. That's really very nice, especially since it kind of evades Madame Medusa and also has 3 law right away. And that means this Ursula can actually stay on the board really very long. So yeah, this is definitely a very nice card to consider in terms of just wanting to quest and also as a counter against Steel Song. If the meta is starting to move into a lot of Steel Song decks, then maybe this Ursula Sea Witch Queen should be a card that is tagged into every single Amethyst deck for the simple reason that if you're not fighting against Steel Song, then you can just choose to ink this card anyway, and since you don't need to use it. And at the same time, I should mention that this card is not only an enchanted card, there's also even an enchanted promo card, because this Ursula Sea Witch Queen is your next set championship card for Ursula's return. So this is something that definitely a lot of people will be looking forward to getting from their tournaments. Moving on, Poor Unfortunate Souls. This is a fantastic card. Poor Unfortunate Souls, you can return any chosen character, item, or location with cost 2 or less to their player's hand. Of course, the issue is that there aren't that many targets for items, because at cost 2 or less, chances are you're just going to be returning popsicles. Do you want to do that? It would have been great if it was a cost 3, but maybe they have been overpowered, because at cost 3, then you can return back to hand, say, Fishbone Quills. Location cards as well, there aren't that many great cost 2 locations that are being played at the moment. I believe the only one is probably, say, Pride Lands, and yeah, that's about it. But you're going to be using it mainly for returning chosen characters to hand, because it's a song card, which means that it can be sung for free for your cost 2 characters, and returning any cost 2 or lower characters back to hand will be really nice. This is especially going to be a great card against the hyper aggro decks. You can bounce back the Simba and all the various bodyguards to just go after your opponent's Lilo. And yeah, this is a really nice tech card, and as always, even though there's no side decking in Disney Lorcana, as long as the card is inkable, you can actually consider it as a tech card that you can just squeeze into your deck, because if you don't need it, you can just ink it anyway. So there's no harm in that. Might as well consider trying out this card. I think that this card would definitely see some play in the upcoming season. Next, you have Ursula's Plan, where you can see the two Ursulas scheming together. Then this is really fantastic for the Lorcana lore. I really enjoy such cards just by the image and for the lore text alone. And each opponent chooses and exerts one of their characters. These characters can't ready at the start of their next turn. So this is kind of like Pepper Madrigal, just that this is an action card that costs 3 to play right away. This card kind of feels like the Beast is Mine, where it actually gave your opponent Reckless. That means that they can't quest on their next turn and they were forced to challenge. So Ursula's Plan is pretty much similar. There's however 2 main issues with this card. Firstly, it's an uninkable, so that's already something to consider. But secondly, the biggest problem is your opponent is the one choosing who to exert, which means that you can't easily just go after their high lore characters. If they already have some other low cost characters on the board, then they can just easily select those to be the ones for the target for Ursula's Plan, which makes this card just a not very good card in my opinion. Then we have Triton's Trident. Technically not exactly a Ursula card, but if you see the flavor text, then yeah, you realize why I put it here, because this is kind of what Ursula is of course gunning for with the Trident. So banish this item, chosen character gets +1 strength this turn for each card in your hand. So potentially you could get a lot of strength. Let's say you have 4 cards in hand, you can get +4 strength. And this is Amethyst Ink, where there's a lot of draw power, so of course you can just draw really fast and gain a lot of strength with this card. But that being said, is it that useful? I guess it sort of counts as a remover for your Amethyst Ink. You can just give a lot of strength to one character and just crash into the opponent's character, but I think that this cost is that bit high. I'm not too sure I like it. Of course, the whole idea for Disney Lorcana is you have 2 inks, so if you really have such an issue with using remover, then you should be pairing it up with your Ruby and your Dragonfire, or pairing up with your Steel various remover cards anyway. So I'm not too sure this is really that needed. We shall see. Next, you have Ursula's Lair, Eye of the Storm. Whenever a character is banished in challenge while here, you may return them to your hand, which is a nice ability. But I think the cost to play this is that bit high. Of course, it's a fantastic location if you have an Ursula in play and you're going to move the Ursula over here, so that if your opponent somehow banishes your Ursula in a challenge, even though it's in this location, and then you can return it to your hand. But I would say that if that was what's happening, then chances are your opponent kind of deserves to lose anyway, because they should be taking out the location first before they take out your Ursula. So you don't really get to use that slippery horse challenge effect. It's kind of more of there to deter your opponent from just taking out Ursula directly. And then with that in mind, that means your Ursulas gain extra +1 lore. But many of your Ursulas right now are all quite high cost. Of course, there's some of the cheaper ones like Ursula Mad Sea Witch, but paying 2 extra ink to just move on your Ursulas there and try to give them extra 1 lore It's a pretty good ability, but it's one of those like kind of win more kind of things. I don't really see Ursula's Lair being used that much at the moment. I may be proven wrong. I still think that this is a decent card, but I think that it's not really necessary at the moment unless we somehow get like 10 different variants of Ursulas and you can have a whole deck of Ursulas, like kind of like what's going on right now for your Magic Brooms. So yeah, that's the idea for all the Ursula's cards. Let's move on to the other stuff. With Belle, Belle Accomplished Mystic. So this is the grown-up Belle, which she's learned the mystic arts, and she's a Floodborn. With the ability, when you play this character, move up to 3 damage counters from a chosen character to a chosen opposing character. So it's kind of a bit of a situational card because you don't always have multiple damage counters that is just there ready to move it to an opponent. And I've commented this before, but I don't think people will be using the shift ability here. It feels like kind of a waste to give this Belle the Floodborn because she doesn't really need to shift in, because at cost 3, you're not going to have characters from your cost 1 and cost 2 that are able to have 3 damage counters to make use of this Belle that effectively. You're going to be wanting to just play this on turn 5 anyway, because that's the only chance where you have more characters that actually have 3 damage counters. Of course, you could kind of go crazy and combine this with Madrigals, but that's probably the only real combo scenario over here, and I think it's very situational. So yeah, I think that this card is not then fantastic at my opinion, because at 5 cost there's a lot of much better 5 cost characters to be played. Belle Untrained Mystic, well, this is the one card which I kind of got irritated about. I mean, not because of the card being good or bad, of course that's one consideration, but because the person who did the card review chose to just have the card show up on his screen, and he used a phone to take a video of his screen. I mean, I know that everybody has different methods of doing card reviews, but this was seriously the most low effort card review I've ever seen, and yeah, I really dislike it that up to now we don't even have an image of the full card. That being said, this is basically kind of the same ability as Belle Accomplished Mystic, just that this is an untrained version of Belle, so she can only move 1 damage counter from a chosen character to a chosen opposing character. So the other one is a cost 5 character that can move 3 damage counters, and this Belle can only move 1 damage counter. So it's an okay card. You can use it for a team deck. That's enough said. Elsa Storm Chaser. I haven't seen this card in such a long time because it was reviewed so long ago. 3 cost character, 1/4 stats, and exert a chosen character against challenger +2 and rush this turn. I think that this is actually a very nice ability. Her stats aren't that great and she's uninkable, which is both not that great, but on turn 4, you can actually play out some other kind of character, or some character that has the ability to gain an advantage by challenging. You know, there's a lot of such options, and then you can exert this Elsa to give them challenger +2 and rush. So that's really very nice. But this is kind of one of the issues in a way for such characters in Disney Lorcana, which is that this is a trap in a way that you can spring on your opponent with your next turn character, but your opponent can see the trap coming a mile away because you have to exert Elsa to be able to use her ability, which at the moment there's just no way at all to exert this Elsa on the turn that she's played. So if there's no way to exert right away, that means your opponent already knows, okay, if you're playing this card, there's a very good chance you have some character that will come out the next turn and they will rush towards me. So they will be careful with their plays, and most probably they will not lose an important character that might be taken out easily. So with that in mind, I think that these cards are typically exert abilities. A lot of them are just not that great. They need to be a lot better and give a lot more value to be able to be used in a game of Lorcana. Next, something that I'm really excited for personally, Magic Brooms. Magic Brooms are finally getting a 1 cost character, which is fantastic. I've been calling for low cost characters for Magic Brooms for a long time to be able to use together with the Sorcerer's Tower and build a full on Magic Broom deck. And yeah, let's finally here we have a 1-cost version, and he actually has ability. When you play another character, you may banish this character to draw a card. So that's a nice ability to have. You can actually just do card draw like your channel box followers. And aside from that, since it's 1 cost, that means if you somehow have a Mickey Mouse Wayward Sorcerer on the board, you can actually play this Magic Broom for free. And then combined with your Sorcerer's Tower, you can actually gain 2 lore out of this single Magic Broom Illuminary Keeper, which is all really fantastic stuff. I think that this is definitely a card that I would definitely throw 4 copies of into a Magic Broom deck. Then we have Magic Broom Livefield Sweeper. This is a 3-cost, 2/4 stats, and 1 lore. This is one of those things that is, of course, kind of almost vanilla stats, just 1 strength lesser, but I'm not too happy about such cards in a way, because this one is outright stating that, hey, you are supposed to play this with Wayward Sorcerer, which is why this broom has 1 strength lesser on purpose compared to the other vanilla brooms, or other vanilla cards like Wardrobe, for example. So yeah, I'm not so happy that they consider the broom classification that important, but 1 strength is alright, I guess. It's not the biggest loss in the world. The whole idea is you still just want to play out the brooms for cheap and then send them in the Sorcerer's Tower to keep on questing. I kind of wish that they just maybe outright make this say 1 strength instead and give it 2 lore. Then it'll be even more crazier. Alright, so those are the Magic Brooms for Amethyst Ink. There's more to come later in the Steel Ink video, so make sure you look out for that one. Then we have Magical Maid Feather Duster. One of those cards which people were saying, why couldn't this have the broom classification? Which I kind of agree, but well, this is the card from Beauty and the Beast, of course. And 2 cost, 2/2 stats with 2 lore. Pretty basic vanilla card. I would say, as usual, that vanillas aren't really that useful in the current age of Lorcana already. We've moved past having to play vanillas unless there's some form of synergy. So with that in mind, I don't think this Magical Maid will be really played, but it's definitely still a nice card for the Beauty and Beast team decks. Then we have Marshmallow Terrifying Snowman. 3 cost, 0/3 stats, and this character gains +1 strength for each card in your hand. Of course, this is again with Amethyst Ink. You have a lot of card draw power, so this Marshmallow could technically be a really strong character. That said, at the very start, before you really get some combos going, chances are this Marshmallow is only going to be having, say, 4 strength, which isn't that fantastic because there's a lot of 3 cost, 4/3 stat like vanilla cards, those are around, and this Marshmallow is uninkable, that's an issue, and willpower is only 3, which is really kind of low. All these cards that actually gain you a lot of strength, I kind of wish they had more willpower so that they could actually survive a challenge. Because if all they have is low enough willpower that they probably can't survive that first challenge, then, you know, might as well just give them, say, Challenger instead, because it doesn't really make much of a difference in a way, because the whole idea is they just go in for just that 1 big hit and that's about it. Next, there's Mrs. Potts Enchanted Teapot. So she has the ability when you play this character, if a character named Lumiere or Cogsworth in play, you may draw a card. Nice card draw ability, 4 cost, 3/4 stats with 2 lore is kind of the basic ability. Definitely a card for you to play with a Beauty and the Beast team deck. Just that there aren't that many Lumiere and Cogsworth at the moment, so maybe you can hold off on playing this card for a while, even if you're playing a team deck. Then we have Peter Pan Shadow Finder. Yes, Rush and Evasive and Fly, of course. Your other characters with Evasive gain Rush. So this is kind of the opposite version of previously we had Peter Pan Shadow. It has the same Rush and Evasive, just that for Peter Pan Shadow, it was all your other characters with Rush gain Evasive. Of course, this is a cheaper version. If I'm just not considering about giving your evasive characters Rush, then you just have Rush and Evasive, 3 cost, 2/3 stats is pretty alright, just that it's still uninkable, it's not fantastic. And also, giving your Rush characters Evasive kind of makes more sense, because when your Rush characters go in, if they can survive the challenge, you'll want them to have Evasive so that they can survive the next turn, and the chances are have pretty strong strength, and they can just take down another character, and yeah, they can survive that way with Evasive. But if this character with Evasive gaining Rush, very often these evasive characters don't really have a strong amount of stats. So if they don't really have that much strength, then yeah, they don't really need Rush anyway, and you're not really going to be playing a deck build which has a character that's evasive and then go into rush right away, it kind of just the opposite kind of side of things. So yeah, I think that this card is definitely not as good as Peter Pan Shadow, and play this card only if you're planning to play a Peter Pan deck, kind of like Zag inside the Discord server. Next, we have Pico, 2 cost, 3/2 stats, vanilla, very basic character. Of course, the ink colors for the various basic vanilla stats are slowly getting filled out here and there as usual. That's fine and all. So yeah, I probably should have placed this one under the Madrigal decks actually, but yeah, he's just a ally, so he doesn't really count anyway. Then there's TikTok, ever-present pursuer. He has evasive, 6 cost for 7 stats. Now he is alright because he has a lot of willpower. He can survive for very long, but he has only 1 law, which I don't like. As usual, when you have evasive, the idea typically I think is that your opponents can't hit this character, so you can keep on questing for law or just using that character as and when you need to for a suitable, say, singing of songs or something else. But this card, TikTok, is a really high cost at 6 cost and an evasive, but only has 1 law. It's a nice amount of stats to have, but 1 law. I know he's not vanilla, but when you have evasive where your opponent just can't hit you, that's about all you can do. So you really just want to keep questing. So I think that he doesn't have enough law to justify really playing this card. Definitely one for the team decks as well. Then we have Yensid. Oh, I should definitely put this one with the Broom card. Yensid, this is a card that actually when you play this character, you have a character named Magic Broom in play, you may draw a card, which is definitely very nice because you're going to be playing a Broom deck, you're going to have tons of Magic Brooms very easily, so you can easily just draw a card. There's even a 1 cost Magic Broom now that lets you just play this on turn 2 to draw a card right away. And of course, while you have 2 or more Broom characters in play, this character gains +2 law. So it's kind of simple. Play your turn 1 Broom, turn 2 play Yensid, you draw a card, turn 3 you play another Broom, and at that stage then you can just quest for 3 law right away. Even if Yensid gets taken out right away, he's already effectively replaced himself with a card draw and gain you 3 law in the process. Overall, I think it's a pretty good profit in my opinion, that this is definitely a card for the Broom decks. And then lastly, second star to the right, this is the crazy Sing Together card for this set, which is a 10 cost card. So yeah, one of the few that we have, Sing Together 10 cost, and then the chosen player draws 5 cards. So this is something that can really let you draw a lot of cards and gain a lot of advantage, but it kind of feels like maybe it's a win more kind of card at the moment because you can't easily achieve Sing Together 10 unless you already have a lot of characters on your board to make use of their ability. But if you've already that many characters on the board, then might as well just quest with all of them to just gain a amount of law and just kind of win. Why would you want to hold back by 1 turn and draw 5 cards? Unless you're doing stuff like, for example, playing it with Ariel Singing Mermaid to actually just gain that amount of single 7 and just have another 3 cost character perhaps to just sing second star to the right really fast by your turn 5 perhaps to draw 5 cards from there. So that's something to consider. Or of course you can play it together with your Ursula's Deceiver of Awe. Then you can even draw 10 cards, which is crazy. But yeah, if it's Amethyst and Emerald, then you don't really have high single value cards, then you are not going to get the Sing Together value. So this is one of those cards that kind of sounds crazy on paper, but I personally don't expect it to really see play, because uninkable means that you just get stuck with this card if you don't have the right card draw, and at the same time you can't really combo it that well other than with Amber Ink, but you don't get to use this 2 times with Ursula, Deceiver of Awe. So yeah, only drawing 5 cards, you're gonna have to set up your deck for it. You're gonna need a lot of high song cost cards to actually make use of this and your area really well. So is it worthwhile to build a full deck out of this? I'm not so sure. I don't really think so. So yeah, that's my thoughts on second starter, right? I think that it sounds great, but I don't expect to see it other than at best maybe just 1 copy for the memes or the Peter Pan team decks. that's my thoughts on second start to the right. And those are my thoughts on all 34 Amethyst Ink cards for Ursula's Return. Similar to the Amber Ink video, I think that one of the biggest bangers over here is of course the Encanto series with the Madrigals. You have the Bruno Madrigal working very well with Alma Madrigal to let you gain 3 lore and adding cards from the top of your deck to hand. You also have your Isabella, where she's the only one questing, she can give you 4 lore right away. So those are very high value cards. And then there's also the, of course, your Magic Broom series, where you can finally build up your full Magic Broom deck with Yensid. Now you have card draw power, you have cards which have various good stats that can all just go into a Sorcerer's Tower to gain extra lore, so that's really nice. And then of course you also have Poor Unfortunate Souls, one of the cards that I thought that would definitely get to see some play in the meta in my opinion, because you can just bounce back cards for cheap, then you can target those hyper aggro decks, and it's gonna be kind of a problem for hyper aggro, I think, in my opinion, if your opponent is playing an Amethyst Ink deck. So those are my thoughts for these cards. What do you think of them? Do you agree with my opinions? Let me know in the comments below, and hope you enjoyed this video. This is D Summon from Mushu Report, signing out.